The reason he had that is because his brain tumor started in his brain and then traveled to other locations in his brain, and then is also dropped to his spine. So we engaged in this full bore radiation, and then as a backup plan, we're doing chemotherapy, which is very intense, and he's been going through that now just for this last couple of weeks. We finished last week, and he, as part of that, all your cells in your body basically can't fight anymore, and so his white blood cells were pretty much non-existent, and he pretty much at this point can't fight anything, so he can't really leave the house. So this morning he woke up with an eye infection, and he also has a very severe cold, and just right now is just kind of laying low at home.
Now, Elise, how old is your son?
He's 3.
And when did he get diagnosed with his first brain tumor?
When he was 2.
And how many surgeries has he had?
He has had about 9, but he's had 3 major craniotomies to his brain. So,
what was it like the moment that you heard the first doctor say, "I think it's a brain tumor"?
I don't even know if I can explain it. It was horrible. I said I wouldn't cry.
No, you're fine, darling. Look.
It was shocking. We were trying to get some kind of... We noticed something was wrong for about 2 months, and we're constantly seeing the doctor and asking about it, and just one day we've kind of forced the issue and finally got an MRI, and we were expecting them to tell us that he had like a slipped disc or something going on, very minor, and actually it was a rheumatologist who helped diagnose him, as crazy as that may seem, and he said that when he told us, he said, "I've never really had to tell parents this before, but your son has a brain tumor," and it was just, and then we immediately went to Duke, and it just from that point on, our life has been very, very different.
But then you say brain tumor, and the first thing you think is death. I mean, there's no other way to say that, but that's just the first thing you think of. The good news is that because of what the folks at the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation has done, raising millions and millions of dollars, and that money going for research, and we were talking earlier to Ms. Traynor, and it's not a fast process for the research to find out what can happen.
There, like you said before, Bob, there's not as much money going into brain tumor research as there are other areas. And when your child is diagnosed with a brain tumor, it changes their whole body. I mean, it changes everybody that's involved, because it's your brain pretty much operates your entire body. And so it's really one of those things that you no longer are just dealing with cancer of the brain, you're dealing with cancer of the body. And your entire family is going to be impacted, and every single penny means the world to these families. And the fact that there is going to be the potential for something out there to maybe either whether the research, the cure, or just the fact that you're going to help a single family. And I think that's just to say you can help one family. You don't even have to think about that you're helping thousands. Just one family is all that matters. So,
Elise, what life lessons has Cooper taught you through everything that he's been through?
Just to take value in every single second of every single day. Like, tomorrow doesn't matter, yesterday doesn't matter, it's just that single day. And that if you, I can't ever, I didn't think that way before. I always was planning. Like, you plan everything in your life. I mean, everybody in this world is involved in planning, but you can't plan anymore. Like, we don't plan. Like, we live by the seat of our pants, and we truly just are thankful that we have, when we can wake up in the morning and we can give each other a hug and we can say, "Thank you, God, for giving us this day," because there really is nothing else that matters.
Can I ask you something? I have a 3-year-old daughter, and when they're 18 months, they start talking a little bit. When they're 2 years old, they start really expressing themselves. When they're 3, they start figuring things out. Has he started to figure out kind of what's going on, and how do you talk to him about what's happening?
It's funny. He doesn't know anything different in some respects, and that's a blessing, because ever since he's been 2, we've been in a hospital, and so, he spent 80% of his life in a hospital, whether it's in the PICU or on the floor at Duke or wherever, but we've been in a hospital. And so he thinks of the doctors as his friends, because, he doesn't have that many playmates. He used to be in a preschool setting, but his playmates are adults now for the most part, because we're so cautious of who he interacts with for colds and so forth. So the other day he said something to me. He looked at a picture, and I said, "Do you remember where this was?" And it was a picture of when we were in Arizona visiting my father and his wife. And And I said, "Do you know who this is?" And he said, "That's Grandpa." And I said, "Really?" He said, "That's when I was sick, Mommy." And I said, and this is right before he was diagnosed. And I said, "Well, how did you know that?" And he said, "Well, I had a brain tumor." And I said, "What do you mean? How do you know you had a brain tumor?" And he said, "Well, Grandpa told me that I was sick, and I heard you say I have a brain tumor." And I said, and he goes, "What does that mean, Mommy?" And I said to him, I said, "Well, you're sick, honey." And I said, "But we're going to get you better." And he said, "But why, Mommy?" And then, of course, the whys just kept coming, but why? And I just kept trying to answer. But you know, he every day, you know, we go to the doctor and he says, "Mommy, is there going to be an ouchie? Am I going to get hurt today?" And I can't lie to him, so I tell him, you know, there might be an ouchie today. And he said, "No, Mommy, I don't want to go have an ouchie today." And it's hard. It's very, very hard because he is starting to understand, and he's starting to not want to. He's starting to realize that isn't normal necessarily, per se. I don't know if that's really what he's realizing, but it's not where he wants to be. And so when we go and we go to the hospital and we spend a week in the hospital in the PICU because my son not only has a brain tumor, but when you have brain tumors, a lot of times there's all these other diagnoses that come with it, and he has something called diabetes insipidus, which means that whenever we go in the hospital, he has to be in the PICU for receiving fluids and being really monitored closely because he can have seizures too. And so it's just he doesn't know anything different, but it's starting to become more and more difficult. Not only that, but on his sister as well, because you know she's there and she hears all of this. And
How old is she?
She's 6.
Yeah.
So, and she's a little mommy, and she watches her brother go through all this, and she's seen a huge change where, you know, he used to be this child running around, climbing things and getting into all kinds of normal trouble that you wish your child wouldn't do, but now I wish that he could. And now she sees him barely walking. You know, he struggles walking or getting up in a chair and all that good stuff. So
A couple weeks ago, I saw met a family who the mom says, in the past 5 years, I've spent more time at Duke Hospital than I have in my own home because I'm not leaving my kid. And when when you have the white count going down, then sometimes the fever gets spiked. And when the fever is spiked, for this particular family, that means a week at the hospital. Mm-hmm. And she says, "I'm just not leaving him." And it's just the way it is. So the good news is, once again, is that there are people who are trying to make a difference and find out
and figure out why. Cooper is a smart little boy. Like,
Yeah.
why? Why are these brain tumors occurring? You know, why does it happen? Why, after you remove a brain tumor, does it grow back? The question is why. And the only way we can figure out why is by money from donations for the research.
Elise, tell everybody just real quick. I mean, we could say it, and we'll be saying it all day, but if they have some money left, you know, I know we've said 1 billion times, we don't have to say it, tough times for a lot of people. But if you have a little money, whatever you can give, as a mom who's going through this and has been through this, why is it so important that today they call and give what they can?
honestly, every little bit counts. I mean, it's just, you know, even the smallest amount. I know this is the worst. I mean, this has been a really hard economic time, and what we have seen, it's amazing when people really understand and are touched by this and kind of see it firsthand, how much it impacts you. And, you know, I used to go into the hospital and I would see kids that were bald, little ones, and I'd say, oh my gosh, I can't imagine going through that and my child being that child. And in fact, the day that my son was diagnosed, right before we found out his diagnosis, I said to him, we were walking through the lobby, and I saw a child, and I looked at my husband and I said, oh, you know how lucky we are, how blessed we are that we don't have to deal with that, that we don't have a child who has cancer. And 20 minutes later, we found out we have a child with brain tumor. And I can't tell you how important every little penny helps for research. It really is important. I mean, I'm on a website, and for my son's particular diagnoses, and all these families are struggling, and pretty much every day a child dies, and that's because there's just not enough. I mean, there's just not enough resources, and we need, and every little bit counts. It really does.
We were saying this morning, bright and early, that every day there are 10. How about this? 10 kids in the United States that are diagnosed with a brain tumor every day.
That's 10 too many.
Yeah. If you can help, please do. Just take 5 minutes out of your day. I know you're busy. You got work to go to. You got food to plan. You got family coming in. You got a vacuum. We know that. You know, everybody's busy. But if you can take 5 minutes, 1-866 866-975-CURE. 866-975-CURE, and help out with the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation at Bob's Buddies.